Hello, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company. Hope you all well. Back in with another video, and this time I'm going back to the fundamentals. I want to talk about what I think is going to happen over the next sort of 4, 5, maybe 6 years, and just kind of discuss what the company's saying, where the company is probably going to go in that kind of direction, and what the kind of mission statement of the company is. So I intend to do a 7-part series and kind of discuss various kind of fundamentals of the company, what I think is going to happen, and a lot of that is based on what the company is actually saying and doing in the background, because I'm privy to some of that information. So yeah, let's get back to the basics, as it were. So what are the Boring Company's core long-term objectives? What is their mission statement? What are they intending to achieve in the short, medium and long term? And ultimately, how are they going to do that? How is that going to happen? Because a lot of things that they say they're going to do on the surface seem simple problems, but require many solutions, and often it's not as easy as you would think it would be. Also, I want us to talk about the technologies that are required to get those objectives completed. There's a lot of technologies that are required in the background, whether it be the TBM, whether it be the actual kind of setup on site, whether it be the construction systems that they use, whether it be how they interact and kind of fund these projects with their partners. There's a lot of things that need to be discussed in that aspect. What the likely business models that the Boring Company could trial. I think potentially this could be like part 5 to 9, but I'm going to try and shorten that because I think really there's only 2. And lastly, what kind of cities, regions are suitable for the Boring Company's system? Because ultimately, really, we're not going to see a system like this in a city like New York. We're not going to see it in the middle of some kind of rural North Dakota or somewhere like that, or northern Canada. There's certain regions where it's suitable, and certain places where it's not going to be make business sense, and other systems are more financially viable in those areas. Okay, so long-term objectives. What is the mission statement? What are the Boring Company actually saying on their website and have been saying in public? We've recently had the Neuralink kind of tell-all kind of progress report that they've done. We've seen the Tesla semi truck kind of reveal. We've seen a lot of things at Tesla AI Day, that sort of thing, SpaceX. I think the Boring Company's coming up next, and I wanted to get this video out to kind of discuss how that all interlinks with this mission statement. So they made a very generalized statement, and that generalized statement was solve traffic. Now, it is very difficult to kind of quantify what that actually means. I'll tell you what I think it means later on, but if that means eliminating all potential stopping points on the road network in a specific city, it's an impossible objective. You're always going to have roadworks. You're always going to have vehicles breaking down on roads. You're going to have roads that need repairing, and ultimately vehicles that get stuck in roads, accidents. So there's going to be traffic whatever you do. But if you could kind of quantify that and significantly reduce, say you were traveling from, let's say, Wigan to Liverpool. How long does it take you to get from Wigan to Liverpool? Well, usually it takes about an hour and 5 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes at peak times. If you can reduce the average to below, say, 28 minutes, 27 minutes, something like that in my mind would be solving traffic, because you're reducing the amount of stoppages along the way and you're increasing the average speed of the journey. Enabling rapid point-to-point transportation. Now, one of the key disadvantages to trains and buses and trams is that ultimately you're stopping along the way. If you're traveling from the north of LA to the south of LA, and you're on a train, it might be that you stop 5 times along the way, and you don't need to stop 5 times. So you're losing that momentum every time you're having to stop, and then you're exerting massive amounts of energy to get that vehicle or train up to speed. And that is one of the reasons why the efficiency of some mass transit systems are less efficient than the Boring Company loop system, because the Boring Company loop system is point to point. That's the aim. It's not going to stop along the way unless it's forced to by another vehicle, which is very, very unlikely to happen, if not impossible. You're going to be driving along at a constant set speed. You're not going to have to slow down. You're not going to have people getting out and getting into the vehicle, which loses 30, 40, 45 seconds every time you do it. And instead, you are maintaining the efficiency of that vehicle along the duration of that route. And transform cities. Again, I'll explain later what I think this means, but again, it's a very generalized statement. There's many ways you could transform a city. One of them being you could just, demolish everything and turn it into a park. Technically, you're transforming the city, but no one's living there. So it's a very, very generalized statement. I'll tell you what I think that involves. But here is a paragraph from the Boring Company website, as it were. Tunnels minimise usage of valuable surface land and do not conflict with existing transportation systems. A large network of tunnels can alleviate congestion in any city. No matter how large a city grows, more levels of tunnel can be added. And let me just add a precursor to that. So, yes, surface land is very, very valuable in big cities, but this system is not necessarily going to be in big cities. It might be in small to medium to large towns as well, and connecting some urban areas with reasonably largish populations. In terms of how large a city grows, it's very, very difficult to plumb in a lot of tunnels once you go more than about 150 meters below ground. It's very, very difficult, because you've got to get down and then you've got to get up. So in reality, you're probably going to have less than 10 levels of tunnel for this system to remain affordable and viable. But for the for 90, 97, 98% of cities in this world, that's going to be more than suffice to reduce, significantly alleviate congestion. And I mean very, very significantly. And don't forget, there's other solutions that you can add on top of this that will, again, further improve a city. So, I kind of discussed the mission statement, but let's delve into a bit more detail. So, point to point. There are point-to-point systems already operational in Europe and in North America. These tend to be at places like Disney theme park, where it's kind of like a hybrid between a train and kind of a pod. There's one that operates in a university. I think it's North Carolina, but I could be wrong there. But there are point-to-point systems that exist today, but they're not very well designed, and they weren't as expansive as they should be, and cost a lot to build. And that's one of the things that the Boring Company is going to vastly improve, is the cost of construction. So when I think of point-to-point, and that is the objective, to create a point-to-point system, you require 3 core things. And one of the most important one is autonomous electric vehicles. You can't have a driver. Presently, they have a driver, and that's a temporary kind of solution to getting this system up and running in Las Vegas. But Tesla vehicles already are very, very capable of level 3 and probably level 4 by the middle of next year. So that problem in itself is largely resolved. It's just more of a regulatory hurdle where they have to prove to the regulators that these autonomous electric vehicles are going to work 99.9999% of the time. That technology is going to be borrowed from Tesla. It is widely available to the Boring Company. They don't need to spend billions of dollars developing it. No one else can do that. No other startup can go out there and just, take that technology. The only other people really that can kind of do this are like Zoox and Cruise and Waymo, and I don't see them out there building underground loop systems. So that system, it requires an autonomous electric vehicle, requires tunnel networks, so you're going to need some form of TBM that can rapidly and efficiently construct tunnels. And currently that technology is being developed for Proof Rock. So we're on to Proof Rock 3 now. I'm expecting major improvements beyond 100 meters per day, hopefully on a future project later next year or the following year. And stations as well. To get point to point, you need regular points where you can drop people off and pick up people as well. So you need lots and lots of stations. It's kind of a bone of contention to me, because if you have too many stations, that interferes with the flow of vehicles through the system. But also, if you don't have enough stations, then people are having to walk 300, 400, 500 meters, and a lot of people really are too lazy to do that. No offense to people, but people don't want to really do that. They want to walk less than 200 meters to their destination. Once they get out of the station, people are quite inherently lazy. I mean, I'll happily walk a mile, but I'm just an anomaly. So building stations affordably and cost effectively, whether that's below ground or above ground, is important to achieving that objective. Solving traffic, again, very, very generalized statement. Really, I mean, you could interpret this about 100 different ways, but I'm going to use my noggin and I'm going to tell you what I think that results in as an objective. Ultimately, it needs to be measurable. If you're going from, say, the Bronx to Manhattan and it takes you 1 hour and 15 minutes in a taxi, if you can then show that you can do it in an autonomous electric vehicle in less than 20 minutes, then that is obviously a measurable a data point that you can say, we have essentially solved traffic. And ultimately you can measure the volume of vehicles that are using the surface roads as well, and if that is falling considerably, you can say, well, it not only is it resulting in shorter journey times for everyone using the system, but it's also resulting in shorter journey times for people that don't use the system or can't use the system, such as commercial vehicles on the surface, and other kind of public utility vehicles, like police cars and fire engines and ambulances and that sort of thing. Solve traffic, it needs to be a scalable solution. If you start off with a system that's around 20 miles, and as you're expanding it 20, 30, 40, 50 miles, the impact that it's having is less on the outskirts of your city than in the centre of your city, then ultimately that's not a scalable solution. You need to be maintaining the same kind of average speeds and encompassing the same kind of areas with your system. So it needs to be a scalable solution that you can build out quickly and cost effectively, without major interference by NIMBYs, people trying to stop it, regulations, that kind of thing. So I think that's what the Boring Company is doing. They're trying to build a scalable system that they can roll out, maybe 6, 7, 8 additional miles of tunnel per year in any city that they choose, and do it in a cost-effective way that any money that they outlay to build that system ultimately pays for itself in a very short period of time. And that comes again to low cost. Because if you're building a tram, for example, if you were building a tram in the middle of Leeds, let's give a UK example, ultimately you're going to have to close down roads, you're going to have to increase the height of curbs, you're going to have to install barriers along certain parts, you're going to have to dig up the road. This is a good example. A better example might be Edinburgh. Edinburgh at the moment has a massive new tram extension, and it's getting very, very expensive. You're talking, 28, 29 million pounds per mile was the original expected outlay, and it's probably closer to 40, 45 million per mile, if not 50 million pounds per mile. So it's not low cost, that, and they're not on the back of that, they're not going to extend it. The Boring Company needs to continue to drive down costs, and that's what we've seen. They're looking at every single element of the job, whether it be the road deck in the tunnel to the actual stations themselves, whether they're surface stations or below ground stations, whether it be the actual concrete they use in the tunnel lining. All the aspects are being drilled down in terms of cost to the absolute minimum level that is safe. Transform cities. Transform cities is such a generalized statement. I wasn't really sure what to put here, but let's discuss it. So I think when I think of transforming a city, I think of redevelopment, and I think of the term densify, which is essentially you take an area maybe that's run down, that's not being utilised that well, and you take out all the crap buildings, all the land that's not being utilised, and you densify it, and you build new stuff there, and you build new businesses and new amenities. And it causes like a surge of people into that area, and it densifies it, and it makes it like a go-to area. And that, for me, would be transforming a city in a positive way. Cutting noise and air pollution. Ultimately, noise pollution upsets a lot of people, and people do get very upset about vehicles running around streets late at night. But more importantly, air pollution. It is like the silent but deadly killer. If you live in a city, your life expectancy is going to be, 6, maybe 7 years lower than someone that lives out in the middle of, let's say, Cumbria or the Lake District or, National Park or somewhere like that, because the air pollution is just so extreme in a lot of cities. Economics as well. Transforming a city, you want to increase the money generating capacity of that city. You want to increase the amount of businesses that are there, the amount of trade that those businesses are doing, and also the economics of getting around a city as well. Because if you're having to pay, $10-15 to get a train or a tram from one side of the city to the other, and it's taking you a long time, ultimately, you're not going to be that willing to do that journey that often unless you absolutely have to. But if that journey was only, 5 minutes, and it only cost you like $3 or $4, you probably would do that journey a lot more. So the economics of going from point A to point B means that more people have more money in their pocket and are more willing to go new places, and ultimately they spend more money, and they're always looking around to go to, they're more willing to move to other areas if it's got good transport links. And that improves the economics of a city. So that is my opinion for transforming city. If you have different opinions on what these various objectives are, please put them in the comments below and tell me if I'm on the right track or the wrong track. So let's summarize and finish this video because it's been going on for a little while. Just like the early days at Tesla and SpaceX, they need to build solid foundations before they build a technology stack to meet their long-term goals and achieve profitability. So, in the very early days of Tesla, it was just an electric car, and they had very, very basic technology underneath that. They were using a lot of suppliers and things like that. And then, once they had proved that concept with the original Roadster, a lot of things got added on. And this is the same with the Boring Company in terms of they built out the Las Vegas Convention Center loop, and now they're building out the various extensions to Resorts World and Westgate and Encore, and then down the strip. They're now ready. Once they've done the bare basics, they've built that original Roadster, they then can build the technology stack. So if you think of Tesla in the early days, it wasn't vertically integrated. They had no charger network. They didn't even have a proper factory. They didn't have any full self-driving software. They didn't really even have any software in the vehicle itself. The infotainment system in the original Roadster was about 5 inches by about 4 inches. Now it's like an 18-inch display with everything built in there. So the same is going to happen with the Boring Company, and the same happened with SpaceX as well prior to Falcon 9. So in terms of how they build out the technology that sits behind the TBM, in terms of how they build technology regarding the autonomous electric vehicles and how they move people around, in terms of building out a physical app that the Boring Company uses for its customers, theoretically that app could be built into Twitter. That's a feeling that I have, but it might work better as a separate app. I can be convinced otherwise. And once they've built out these technologies and proved them out in the field, once they're building out miles and miles of tunnels every single month, and they've got a system that is profitable and expanding at quite a decent rate. It's moving, let's say 5 to 10% more passengers every month, because they just keep adding more vehicles and finding greater efficiencies for moving more vehicles around and building extra stations. That's when the flywheel starts going, and we start to see a lot more profitability, a lot more scalability, and those technology stacks start to pay for their initial development costs, because ultimately the Boring Company is losing money at this very moment in time, and will still be losing money in the next 3 years. Okay, so those are my thoughts. Areas to focus: tunnel boring machines, autonomous electric vehicles. Ultimately that technology is going to be borrowed from Tesla at a very negligible cost. And I mean, that saved them billions. No one else can do that. The tunnels, the actual technology regarding the tunnels, road deck, how where they source the concrete from, what they do with the spoil once they've evacuated it from the tunnel. In terms of the concrete, are they gonna insert CO2 into the concrete as it's being produced? Sequester it. And also prefabrication of the stations, of various other elements of the system, the road deck, the ventilation system, M&E, all these things could be prefabricated and standardized. And that's what we will be discussing in future videos, as long as I stay on top of this. Right, thank you everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. I hope it's refocused you in terms of what the Boring Company is doing and will continue to do. As always, please like and subscribe to the video if you've not already done so, and comment on the video. Tell me what you think about these various objectives. Have a look at this screen. If you've not signed up to these 3 things, please do so. As always, my Patreons continue to support the channel. Really do appreciate your help, honestly guys. It really does help this channel, and it's going to help us grow in the future. As I kind of refocus more of my time on making more and more videos. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Hope that you have a lovely weekend, and if I don't speak to you before Christmas, Merry Christmas everyone, and hope you have a very happy new year, and I'll see you on the next one. Remember guys, don't be boring. Take care now. Goodbye.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
Hadouken!